What are some of the challenges that the Black community goes through?
The easiest way to keep population base or a community down is to not educate and not give it opportunities. As a society, we do a terrible, terrible job with educating or informing our young about what opportunities there are out there.
Every time anybody is applying for a job or is an entrepreneur, what are we looking for? Is that one chance to prove ourselves and prove our worth? That's what it is all about. Everybody deserves to get that one opportunity and that one chance, right?
Hi, and welcome to my podcast, Extraordinary with Chirag. Today, I am in conversation with Jerome Chinner. Jerome is a senior business leader and an industry stalwart. In addition to that, he's also the founding and board member for a company called Accelerate Auto. Their mission is to promote Black talent within the automotive industry here in Canada. And that really is what the theme of our conversation is all about. I wanted to understand what are some of the challenges that the Black community goes through here in the West. In addition to that, I also wanted to understand that does the color of our skin have an impact on the opportunities that we get professionally? One of the key takeaways that I've had through this conversation is the fact that we can and we need to do better as a community. I hope you enjoy the conversation just as much as I did. And before I let you go, today's episode is brought to you by Kent Water Purification System. They are the pioneers in providing you with clean, healthy, and chemical free water. I have the whole house water purification system installed at my place. And ever since I've done that, I have experienced reduced hair fall because of the water softener that treats the hard water here in the south of Ontario. So, if you've been struggling like me with hair fall, I would suggest that you give Kent a try. And they have an amazing offer that they've rolled out where if you get their whole house water purification system installed now, you only start paying in 2025. Not only that, you also get a $300 Amazon gift card with every purchase. So, what are you waiting for? Head on to kentwater.ca and schedule your free water test now. Thank you for that. And now enjoy the conversation.
Hey, Jerome, thank you for doing this. Welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thanks, Chirag. And looking forward to it. No problem.
We've been going back and forth a little. I know that you'd been traveling. I'm glad that we've been able to do this. So I'm going to dive right into it. For the audience who do not know who you are and what you do, could you share with us a little bit about your background and your journey so far?
Yeah, I'm Jerome Chinner, work in the automotive industry for a wonderful organization called TAC Automotive Intelligence. Right now, we build software and solutions for the automotive industry, both in the OEM sector with the banks, i.e. lenders, and also for the dealer community. We're making some moves and we're making some changes in the sense of how we see people buying cars, making it easier, easier path to success, easier path to purchase, put it that way. I've been in business for a long time. Career's pretty long. I mean, closer to the other end of the scale than I am at the beginning of my journey. But I started working for a great organization called American Express years ago, and had a lengthy career. I was there for 15 years. And went through. There was a lot of opportunity within American Express. You just had to go get it. Then I went through American Express, went through a couple other organizations. Worked at Auto Trader for 7 years. Had a great time there, and that was wonderful. That was my first exposure in the automotive industry. So I've bounced around from financial services to relocation services to automotive digital marketing, which I had no idea about, but the skill sets I learned at American Express were transferable, and you can learn product anywhere, right? So,
right.
And I went from there to, where did I go after that? I went to a F&I, automotive F&I supply company, and then ended up at TAC Automotive with a wonderful group of people, great friends, great colleagues. It's been great so far.
I've been in Canada for about 5.5 years.
Yeah.
And finally now, once I've settled and my mindset is changing a little bit from I want my job, I want to get my appraisal, I want to buy a house. Essentially, my life has always been around I, me, myself, like a lot of other people. But now there is a shift where I want to understand and also see if I can make an impact in the community. And the one conversation, Jerome, that had been playing on my mind where I don't have any information or I don't have much awareness around, and I'm sure that there are a lot of people like me who need to know this and need to understand, which is representation, which is diversity, which is inclusion. I don't know the challenges the Black community faces or goes through. It's not something that I have actively even gone and asked people. I was lucky enough to be part of the event that we were at together, where at least I got to preview sort of a trailer into what a community goes through. It's always been about me and my community so far. So I want to shift focus and tap into your experience on finding out what are some of the challenges that the Black community goes through. You can give me references and tie it back to the automotive industry as well. But let's kick off the discussion here by talking about the challenges that the Black community faces for somebody who has zero idea.
You know, I gave you a little background on myself. I was born in Cape Town, South Africa, right? I mean, I lived there for 5 years and experienced apartheid. And that's pretty well in your face, right? This is what it is, you know, my birth certificate actually states the color of my skin on my birth certificate, right? Which surprises a lot of people. And I said, oh, that's how they classified. That's how they classified people in South Africa right from birth. So, and they had a system there that was perfectly, it was designed. So when apartheid was brought out, the South African government went to visit the United States and found out about how slavery was handled in the United States, and also went to Australia to find out how segregation was handled there. And they made it, for lack of a better term, they just made it better. Right? I mean, apartheid is a terrible, terrible situation. But what it was based on is minimizing opportunities for a population. Right. So if you look at South Africa, the easiest way to keep a population base or a community down is to not educate and not give it opportunities. Straightforward. And what happens is that community turns to ways to survive. That's the only thing. And I mean, unfortunately, they turn into ways that are violent or crimes are committed. But it's natural human behavior that when your back is against the wall, you're going to do anything you can to survive, right? But the key point is minimizing opportunities and minimizing education. So if you don't educate, people can't get opportunities, right? If they do educate, you get to an opportunity and don't give them the opportunity, then you'll never be able to build generational wealth ever, right? It's never going to happen. So if you look at go through the cycle of, and you go through apartheid, you look at slavery, and everywhere down that road, you look at the community, the Black community specifically, that's part of that adds to this conversation, denied access to education and opportunity all the way through. So it creates this cycle of generational wealth where you can't, your parents or your grandparents or your great grandparents didn't get educated. They have to take minimum wage jobs, and they haven't been able to buy a house. Your grandparents get through the same cycle because your great grandparents can't afford to send them to school, so they have to go back in the same cycle. So it's this never ending turn, right? So we're getting to the point now where we want, as Accelerate Auto, our main goal is to expose, to increase black visibility within the automotive industry. Bottom line, main goal. I mean, I've been in the industry since 2007, 2006. I've been here for a considerable amount of time. I mean, I've gone to conferences where there's very minimal people that look like me, right? I mean, yeah, you could still go to some of them today, and it's getting better, but it's not there. I mean, even women in the industry, it has been really, really tough in the past, and it's starting to get better, but it's not where it should be. It's been a very, very male dominated industry. I mean, there's lots of industries like that too. I mean, the construction industry, the welding industry, but we're trying to get people aware. And I think the main thing is awareness about the industry, because the industry is a wonderful, wonderful industry, right? And we've gotten partners and organizations on board with us to keep and make sure people are aware. I think as a society, we do a terrible job, Chirag, with educating or informing our young about what opportunities there are out there. I mean, specifically in underrepresented communities, the Black community, Middle Eastern, Southeast Asian, and all these industries where there's a lot of immigration, and immigration hasn't been, or people that have immigrated haven't been able to do the jobs that they're trained to do. I mean, there's a lot of educated people out there, but they just haven't been able to get. We have one person that's working for us that works with us at Accelerate. She has 2 law degrees.
Wow.
2 law degrees, right? And I remember asking her about, why aren't you in the legal system? She just says, I needed a survival job. So she immigrated out of a bad situation from her country of origin, and with her I think her son, to create a better life for him and her in Canada. And what happens is she can't afford to go to school to continue to get her law degree, because she has to pay bills and food. And that's this cycle, right? That people aren't aware of, that a lot of immigration goes through, is because some of there's immigrants, people immigrating in Canada are different, right? They come from different backgrounds and different things. Some of them are highly educated, and some of them have wealth. And the people that do come with wealth have a different entry and a different path within North America. But the people that, pack up shop and say, let's go. Look, when I came with we immigrated in 1969. And basically we came with a suitcase each, declared refugee status, came with a suitcase each. My dad was a doctor, and he graduated pretty high, and we ran into, and he could write a book, actually. I mean, we lived in Zambia, and one of our best friends was at our house, and he brought his friend over. It turns out his friend was one of the high-ranking officials within the ANC with Mandela at that time, and my dad was coming home from the hospital one day and got kidnapped by the South African government.
Jesus.
Yeah, honestly, Chirag, 9 months later, we're landing in Canada in February. And trust me, global warming's a thing, because when I landed in Canada in February, it was cold and about 8 feet of snow. It was completely different, right? I mean, and that's what you go through as, and my dad had to requalify as a medical professional in Canada, and he did it. But he also worked at a clinic and did whatever he needed to do to pay his bills. We lived in a friend's basement of their house. I know exactly where our first house was, and modest house, and where we ended up living later in life. I mean, and you just look at the path of a lot of people, and you just try to understand that. You take a look at people that are driving cabs and doing minimum wage jobs. A lot of those people are educated, and a lot of those people want to do things differently. And everybody, most people have a desire to be able to provide for their family, give their family every opportunity they can have, right? And that's all my dad looked at. And then you look at, like I said, with this whole generational thing, I think it's so hard to get out of it. And what we want to do at Accelerate Auto is show people that there's an opportunity, right? And we work with our partners and say, give us these jobs that are specific to our community. I mean, it's a really tough conversation to have with an organization, and says, we're going to hire someone, but we're going to hire someone from the Black community. Give us a job, and we're going to go right to the Black community. So we still have to build out some mechanisms. I mean, you can go to the schools and get internships, but they can't post it on their job boards and say only for the Black community. You can't do it, right? Because somewhere our laws, if someone said our laws won't allow that, and I said, well, why not? Our government posts jobs, then they'll tell you it's for people from the Indigenous community or from the Black community. That's federally. They'll do it.
Yeah.
So why can't we do it as the private sector, right? I mean,
yeah,
we've got some of the organizations that we work with are pretty bold. They'll do it. I mean, I was at this one session, and we were talking about inclusivity and things like that. I mean, diversity is everywhere, right? I mean, I remember this one person we were at this conference, they said this: diversity is everywhere, right? It's everywhere you go is diversity. Diversity is everywhere. Inclusion is a choice, right? Inclusion's the choice of an organization to want to be inclusive. And there's companies that really, really step out and want to be inclusive and do everything they can and make people accountable, because people still have bias, no matter what. It's human nature. People still have bias. They hire into areas, or they hire people that they're familiar with, or the person doesn't fit, that type of thing. But if you step back and start mandating things, or holding people accountable. I know of organizations that have gone out and said, we're hiring 5 people, and we're hiring 5 people of ethnic descent, and 50% of them have to be women. And that came from the CEO of the company. And unfortunately, when they went to do job offers, the 5 people didn't even come close to what the CEO said, and he declined every one of them. Right? It's not happening. But I think you got to get to that point. I mean, I know there's industries that have taken pretty big steps out there in the marketplace, and everyone's concerned about socially what's going on, and how's that going to be accepted in this community? How's that going to be accepted in this community? I mean, we as a society need to be able to step back and say, what's the right thing to do, and how do we get people exposed? And I'll give you an example of someone I met on a golf course. I play a lot of golf. And he was telling me this story. He owned his own investment company, mergers and acquisitions type thing. And he started this out, and he got approached by one of the universities and said, hey, why don't you hire some interns from our school? And he said, look, I do well, but we don't really have the bandwidth to pay people, but I can give them great experience. And he said, you know what, there's a lot of these kids that'll just do it just to get the experience, and so it's on their resume, and they can put themselves forward. And he said to him, tell you what, I'll do it. And he ended up selling his company, his investment banking company. He ended up selling it, but he said, before I sold it, I made stipulations with this school. I said, I will hire interns, but here's my stipulation: none of them can have any connections in the industry, not one. You imagine this, right? So no connections in the industry. Can't have parents, can't have cousins, can't have a sister, can't have brothers, can't have anybody that are connected to anything in banking or in the investment industry at all. So they have to sit there like deer in headlights, right? Trying to figure out how are they going to get into the industry and network their way around it. He says, those are the people. So he hired 6 people over 6 years, right? Or 5 people over 5 years. And all of them are senior VPs now at investment companies.
That's a very interesting approach. I have not heard something like this before.
Yeah. So think about it, right? If you are new to the country, you have no network, right? If you are from a community where most of the people are blue collar workers and you want to get into the white collar environment, you have no network. You're starting from scratch. And a lot of people struggle with imposter syndrome, and now with cell phones as well. I think communication, we've lost the art of communication a lot with our young people, and I think we need to get better at that with the society. But access to networks is a massive job. Like when I started working, I didn't realize my dad's a doctor. I have no connections in the business world. I mean, who am I going to talk to? I can't talk to anybody is at the hospital in a sense of, how do I get into the accounting field? But he had patients that were in the accounting field, and I worked my way through it. But I actually didn't end up with any of his patients as jobs. I actually ended up getting a job at American Express because someone I went to school with got a job there, and they called me and said, "Hey, they're hiring you. Are you interested?" I said, "Yeah, sure. I'll send in my resume." So, and that's what we want to do. We want to create Accelerate Auto wants to create this environment where we're highlighting the automotive industry to people that aren't sure about where they want to go. I mean, you ask a lot of students about the automotive industry, and everyone comes back to, "Well, I don't want to sell cars, or I don't want to be a mechanic." I said, "Well, that's not all you have to do, because there's financial side of the automotive industry, there's the manufacturing side of the automotive industry, there's the retail side of the automotive industry, there's remarketing, there's risk assessment, risk analysis. There's everything within the automotive industry." And then when we start talking like that to young people, their eyes open up, go, "Whoa!" And don't forget about the software development and the engineering side of it, because of electrification and self-driving cars, and cars becoming more computers than anything else. Right. Yep. And people start getting really, really excited. I mean, I'll give you an example. Last year, we just did it this year, but we didn't ask the question. Last year, we took 50 students from the TDSD to the auto show and exposed them to the auto industry, and took them on guided tours. And some of our partners took them on guided tours and sat there and talked to them for 30 minutes about their vehicles and the strategies and what they're working on. And we talked about good things in the industry, bad things in the industry. We had the Automotive Business School from Georgian College come, Ontario Tech University was there. We had one of the engineers, the young engineers that was on Project Aero. I don't know if you've ever heard of Project Aero, but it's Canada's electric car, right? It was built in Canada, engineered in Canada. And it actually is the students at Ontario Tech University won the design competition for it. So the car sits at Ontario Tech University until it goes out to shows. But it's an absolutely phenomenal car. So that young man came down and talked to the students about the car and the opportunity and what they did, and it gets people so excited about it. But at the beginning of the show, we asked the 50 kids, or 48 students at grade 11, 12, and some 9s and 10s. How many of them have thought of a career in the auto industry? 3 hands went up. Took them on the tour, talked to them for tour lunch sessions for 2 hours, asked them the same question before they left. Out of the 48 kids, 45 of them put their hand up that they would consider the automotive industry as a career.
Wow.
And that's all it takes. I mean, and if you go to these schools, the communities that we deal with in Scarborough and Brampton, and you go to these schools and talk to them about opportunity, it's different. I mean, I challenge people when universities go talk to schools about coming to their university, how many of them are going to schools in Scarborough? How many of them are going to schools in Brampton? How many of them are going to schools in Toronto and Oshawa, right? Where it's predominantly ethnic population base, like Ajax and things like that. How many of them do it, right? I mean, you can't recruit people. So, and if you get on the whole community thing, so university, I don't know if you know this, but universities in Toronto, in the city center, TMU, York, and Toronto, have a pretty high population base that are ethnic, right? And once you start going out of the city center, it gets lower and lower and lower. And it's because of one reason. People don't want to pay for residence. It's $15,000 to $20,000 a year at an expense, whereas I can commute. to a university in Toronto. Or if I live in Hamilton, I'll go to McMaster, where I can commute to McMaster, right? So, and then you take a look at the colleges. Colleges have a very, very high population base of ethnic students, and that's all because of residence and cost, right? So I talk to a lot of our companies, because a lot of our companies go out there. A lot of companies in general say, "Yeah, I want to hire students, and I want to hire university degrees." So I said, "Well, do you realize that once you say university degree, you're taking out potentially 40 to 50% of the student base out of it completely, right away, done. And
Right.
if you're saying you want to hire diverse from universities, it's even greater. It's an even greater impact. So I think, as universities, as we talk to organizations, we need them to start looking at hiring guidelines, right? I mean, there's a lot of kids right now that are going to university, then going to college to try to learn how to actually do something, right? My wife did it. By the way, she's Scottish and English and very milky white, right? But is an absolute supporter, proponent of everything I do. I mean, you don't want to get on her bad side and talk to her about, integration or there's too much support going to ethnic societies and stuff like that and racism. And she'll call you out on it. She's pretty vocal about it. But I think the more people understand, I think the big thing it is now is people need to understand other people across the board, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, everyone has a different situation and everyone's growing up or handling life differently. And they're in a situation because something's happened. I mean, immigration, people are immigrating for multiple different reasons. I mean, they could be immigrating because there's war. I mean, there could be women
It's happening
immigrating
right now.
because, right. Yeah, it's happening right now. And women immigrating because they can't walk down the street safely, right? I mean, why wouldn't you want to leave? Why would you stay in an environment where you're not safe or your daughter isn't safe or your kids aren't safe? That's terrible. So I think, but if we're as a nation going to take immigration in, we need to have opportunities, right? I mean, there's from our community, my community, and the Black community, we do a lot of work with the TDSB, and you can see it in kids' faces, right? You can unfortunately you can see it in some of their faces that they don't see the opportunity. There isn't out there. They've shut it down already, and going. And I talk to educators, and I said there's these kids that are on the borderline of going to school and getting a career and getting educated. And they're on the borderline. The other side is doing all the bad things to survive, right? And he said those are the kids that we need to get, because the students that are already over the edge, very hard to get them back. But the kids that are on the borderline, those are the ones that we want to stop and get them into careers. I mean, and we talk to kids about STEM and STEAM all the time, and there's kids that are engaged and the kids that aren't engaged. And I can tell you there's a distinct difference in schools as well. Education processes, access to things at school. My son goes to a school here that's in an affluent area, and they've got access to things that schools in Scarborough have. They have no clue what that is, what he didn't even know, right? But I mean, I think as a society as well, we've made an issue for ourselves of minimizing the look of trades in schools as well. I mean, we've got a shortage of skilled trades.
I have a question, and you said something about kids being in school, etc. So now, when it comes to certain areas where we know that it is driven by the ethnic population in that particular area, does it also mean that the teachers in those schools are of the same ethnic group? And because I don't have insights to that. I don't know if you happen to know something about it. And does that play a positive or a negative role? So let's say that if do a Black person understands what the other Black person is going through? Likewise, I know for a fact that I understand what the Indian immigrant mindset is, because I belong to that community. Now, when it comes to me getting educated, does it mean that if I have a more multicultural sort of teachers and mentors, that definitely gives me a more evolved
Really?
opinion? But at the same time, is there a relatability factor or something? If you could quickly shed some light on it, I just
Yeah,
thought of.
great question. I think there is, and I think there's a if you can see it, you can be it type thing, right? I mean, if they can see, if
Absolutely.
people from different communities, or specifically, let's talk about the Black community, can see people in positions that look like them, there's more motivation. And I think in the schools, there probably is the educators are probably more towards the lines. And I mean, education the in the schools in Scarborough and things like that, where it's a higher population of ethnic people, I think the educators are extremely important, because I think that's that one area that's different to their parents. People might not be getting any type of the set goals and motivation and career path and think discussion from their parents. But because maybe the parents are too busy, maybe they're working two jobs and they're just too busy. And but the educators are become that much more important and relatable, because that's the only area they have, right? Or else they're going to learn from their friends, and if their friends are going down the bad path, that's what's going to influence people, right? I mean, there's a lot of people that are influenced by their surroundings, and it takes a strong moral fortitude for someone not to go down the path that their friends have gone down.
Environment plays a critical role
Massive,
in shaping what you do, how you are, and what you become.
massive impact. And that's what Accelerate wants to do is get to people early and talk to them about it. We do auto events at the high schools, and we bring our partners down. We do a car show, and people talk about cars, and people talk about the banking industry, to talk about lending. And we make it pretty clear with our partners that it's great to talk, but actions speak louder than words. So if we're going to go out there and talk, we need jobs, and we need to put people in jobs from this community so they can understand and learn. And we've got some pretty good support from a lot of from our main partners about it. We need more. I think there's organizations that want to get in that haven't got in, and it's kind of shocking. I think, my opinion, I think there are companies that talk diversity and DEI, and don't. I think it's a checkbox.
That's just buzzwords for them, right? And I was going to ask you earlier as well, because then it's not a straightforward setup where you can go and specifically for somebody who's listening in from a different country like Canada, you have to post a job, etc., and then you can't have any classification whether this is for a certain ethnic group, barring a couple of communities which we're actively supporting, right? So a lot of times people and companies and brands can hide behind that entire process because it is that gray, and you don't see the change happening. But Jerome, I am a firm believer and supporter of what you guys are doing
Awesome.
at Accelerate Auto. If Extraordinary can be a platform that can come in and support in any shape, way, and form, we are here for supporting the cause at Accelerate Auto. I think, today was just me scratching the surface and trying to get a little bit more perspective on what's the lay of the land and really the mission that you're trying to accomplish and achieve. The key takeaway for me, there have been three, in fact. Number one, that when people from automotive talk, time just flies.
That's funny. Honestly, sorry, Shrek, but just might be me. I love to talk, right? I love to talk about the industry and things.
I completely was having so much of fun during our conversation. because it's just so many things that we need to talk about, and
Yeah.
we can't get enough of it. But with regards to the second discussion that we've had, I think the first part is that we need to drive more awareness and come
Yes.
together as a community as well and support each other, giving access to information to the next generation is critical.
Very
And
critical.
what I now understand as well is that it's about equal opportunities. I never looked at it from an opportunity standpoint. And just to give you a parallel, every time we apply for a job, or anybody is applying for a job or is an entrepreneur, what are we looking for? Is that one chance to prove ourselves and
Yep.
prove our worth. And if that's what it is all about, and everybody deserves to get that one opportunity and that one chance, right?
And everybody does. I mean, you look at, I know we're trying to close it off now, but, I've heard people talk about, well, I can't get a job now because they're only promoting ethnic people, and I just tell them, what, this is happening now and you're upset about it. It's, that's been happening for like 400 years to everyone else. And now the table has turned a bit. I mean, people just need to step back and understand. I'm a firm believer of putting the best candidate in the job. But I always tell people, you got to make sure your best candidate is your best candidate. And I tell people, you can't fish in the same pond and expect to catch different fish.
I love
you can't, right? They're always going to be the same. I mean, I've told organizations, I said, if you've got an organization that is not a diverse organization, the worst thing you can do if you want to create a diverse organization is offer employee referral bonuses. He said, you're not going to get any diverse referrals. It's not going to happen. It might, but it'll be a very, very low percentage. I mean, you've got to put actions in place. If you want to create a diverse environment and an inclusive environment, you've got to put actions in place that actually will push people that way, move people that way to inclusivity, and hold people accountable for it. I mean, so, human biases still get in there, right? If you have two people coming to the table, one is from the Black community and one is from a white community, and they're both equally skilled, right? If whoever is sitting on the other side of the table, the hiring manager, that's the person that dictates who gets what, right? And then what happens is personal biases start coming in. But if you tell people that, we need to hire someone that's ethnic and female, and find that best candidate, right? Then there's a direction and a path and a plan, and you can hold people accountable. I know organizations that have said, nope, unless you're hiring a female, I don't want to see the resume. Don't want to see it. Right? I mean, you take a look at, I work with a colleague of mine in the industry. She is the only Black female president in Canada.
Wow.
Guarantee you that. Right? I mean, if you take a look at opportunities or people in the industry from ethnic descent, go ethnic descent and then add in women of ethnic descent. Wow. It's a completely different number. And I think what you said before is offering opportunities equally and equitably to everyone, right? And also working with young people and making them helping them understand that those opportunities are out there, but they have to see it. They have to see people in roles. They have to see that, oh, he's done it, or she's done it, I can do it, right? So most of the people that we get to come and talk to our students and young people are all people they can relate to. Oh, I can see it. Like we've had an organization call us and they said they're trying to hire someone from, for the specific role. And we asked them these different questions. They said, well, they have to have this, they have to have this, and they have to have that. I said, you do know there is no one in the automotive industry that fits what you're looking for. They said, what are you talking about? I said, there's nobody there. If there was someone there, you wouldn't be calling us.
Right.
Right? But you're asking us to look within our industry for a person that has these two specifications, these other specifications, and there isn't anybody. Because if there was, you'd hire them.
Exactly.
Right? And by the way, the two people you're talking to are two of the three people in the country that have those specifications.
Oh,
right.
Man.
And people start opening up their eyes when they start looking at it, and they go, "Oh my God, you're right." I said, "You're trying to hire an executive that has this background and works in this industry." He said, "That's why we're here, is to make sure that we can expand on that, right? From a management and senior management. It's not just about getting people into roles. I don't want to get our community and have them be lot jockeys. I mean, sure. I mean, there's a lot of dealers that own dealerships that have started out as lot jockeys and worked their way up and ended up buying the dealership. Nav Badia started very low on the totem pole when he started. Now he owns pretty well an empire in automotive. And
exactly.
His impact in the marketplace from social awareness is phenomenal from community.
Yeah.
And I think we just need more and more people doing that and being outward like that and giving people opportunity. I mean, look, we put scholarships up to go to school. We get people $2,500 or $5,000 for a scholarship. I don't know if you got kids in school, but I got a kid in school. I got someone in school. $5,000 is great, but you know what? My annuals are way more than $5,000.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
The cost to go to school outside is expensive. We talked about that, but I think we just, people just needed to sit back and say whatever we can. I mean, the Pinball Clements Foundation does a great thing. They raise funds and pay for kids to go to school, pay the dime, right? And we work very closely with them because we want to take those kids that have gone to school and got an education and put them in, get them jobs and show them what the automotive industry is all about. And it is a place we work on four pillars: awareness, development, mentorship, and community. Right? That's what we work on. I mean, having people aware of the industry is one thing. Mentoring people within the industry, within our community is another thing, because I think they need someone that they can talk to that's at different levels in career-wise, and they have gone through a different path, and they can see it was done. Right? The other side is development. I mean, training and developing people and getting them ready for those jobs and someone they can lean on, and community, and just making sure the community is safe and everyone, gives each other a hug. Right? That's what it comes down to, is making sure everyone is got that equal opportunity. I think it's getting there.
Absolutely.
It isn't where it should be, but it's closer. Still got a lot of work to do.
Still got a lot of work to do, but it's great to see the kind of effort and leaders like such as yourself,
thanks,
who are the driving force behind this and are the torchbearers of the change. And I'm sure that we will see a lot more happen in the future.
Yeah.
And listen, thank you very much for this conversation. It's been a pleasure being able to listen to you and hear about, some of the challenges and all the good work that you guys are doing.
Yeah.
So before I let you go, a quick question. If anybody needs to reach out to you, how do they connect with you? What would be the best way to say a quick hello to you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm on LinkedIn, Jerome Chinner on LinkedIn. If you want, you can connect with me on Accelerate Auto. My Accelerate email is jerome.chinner@accelerateauto.ca. You can go onto our website. You can send in a connection there. But honestly, if anybody wants to have a chat, feel free. Anybody that's runs an organization wants to talk about how do they get involved and how do they help, feel free. I love talking about it. Sure, with yourself, and thanks for giving me the opportunity here. I mean, organizations and people and companies like yourself that want to have these discussions and want to be open about these discussions. It's important. I mean,
absolutely.
Some people don't. People don't want to know, right? It's natural. It's human nature. People don't want to know what's happened. and what's created to some things, and they don't want to be responsible for it, so they'd rather not hear about it. But I think channels like yourself that let's have that open discussion, and the more and more people want to have that open discussion, let's talk about it. I mean, that's the only way we're going to fix it.
I agree with you, because avoiding a conversation or something is only going to get us that far. Eventually, we need to address it and have that conversation, right? And understand and stop ignoring the things that are happening around us. It's been fun, Jerome, and I do feel that a lot more such conversations are required, because we probably barely even scratched the surface. And I can already understand there is so much that an ethnic group goes through, and I'm part of one as well. And the last 5 years have been a little different for me as well, because being born and brought up in India and having worked there and everything in your comfort zone, you never felt different. You just felt being part of the same community. Suddenly, you move to Canada and you're like, oh,
yes, you're not the same anymore.
It's not the same anymore. So I get that, and we need to address these questions. And I hope that brands and people who are listening into this conversation take away something relevant from this. And like I said, we are a patron for Accelerate Auto as well. Anyway, the extraordinary platform can support you guys. Please let us know.
I mean, the more we can develop, the more we can educate, and the more we can get people on a career path, we can impact generational wealth. Ultimately, and that's the goal, is to get people out of the cycle. It's good for the world.
100%.
It really is.